Thank you so much. 30,000 views over the last 2 weeks for the Student Body Right USC podcast and the Put on Raiders podcast here on the Put on Waivers Media Group. We appreciate all that. Have a great Thanksgiving as well. So do me a favor. Let the views match the subs and subscribe to the channel. Keeps all this stuff free for you guys. So keep that thing popping and rolling. We appreciate that. Now we're head over to the Put on Raiders podcast where Ryan and I talk about the Broncos game and then preview the Seahawks game and maybe some off-season activity for the Raiders who are now 3-7. All right. Peace.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Student Body Right USC podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful night out here in Southern California. Make sure you get your flannel ready, your hoodie, a hat, whatever you want. A little chilly outside today, but nothing seems to really kind of cool off these USC Trojans as they continue to march, man. They continue to march and continue to play really good football down the stretch, and they just continue to beat ranked opponent after ranked opponent after ranked opponent on their way to Las Vegas, where they will play either at this point Utah or Washington for the Pac-12 championship. Listen, I try to tell people from day one, when Lincoln Riley came here, came to Southern California, took his family to Southern California, took his brand of football, took his quarterback, who was one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. We'll talk about him as well. To USC, it was going to be a big deal. People said, a couple years, defense isn't there yet. This isn't there yet. Although they gave you this because the SEC is there and the Big Ten and all that stuff like that. Everybody wants to give you all those different little excuses, but I mean, I'm the one. I just sat here and was pretty bold and just said they're going to be a factor this year. They're going to be a huge factor. They're going to be able to run the football. That's the one thing that Lincoln Riley has been able to do from day one inside of his offense. What he wants to be able to do is run the football. And if he can run the football, that's what opens up everything else. Just like any other great play caller. All you heard about going into the Notre Dame game was how Notre Dame is going to bleed the clock out, run the clock out. Like these people who watch college football, I would love for them to show me the game that resembles the Bills and Giants, where Bill Parcells' Giants held the ball for almost the entire time, and then Jim Kelly and company could not get going. They end up, wide right, end up losing the Super Bowl because the Giants bled the clock and kind of took the wind out of the sails from that high flying offense. It's difficult to do that to USC. They put so much pressure on you to score and to score at a high level, and if you can't keep up, and you don't have a dynamic passer with the football, people are picking Notre Dame in this game, and I'm saying to myself, what are you talking about? Like this quarterback they have a pocket passer who's not really a big time score, not really a big time dual threat guy. There's no way that guy is going to go toe to toe with Caleb Williams and come out on top. And that was pretty much the case. I mean, Caleb Williams' escapability is up there with some of the best you could see in college football right now. Bryce Young. I mean, it's a short list of guys who can do really special things with the football in their hands. I think number 13 is one of them. So I gotta give Lincoln Riley that credit. Obviously, the play calling, the play design. The run game, the pass game. I'm just getting so many different pieces of the Trojan attack to touch the football, and makes that Trojan offense so difficult to defend at all levels, whether it's the run game, intermediate passing game, or deep down the field. And then you have Caleb back there where you can do everything right, and it's still not enough because Caleb Williams can just do all these crazy things. with the football. He had one run that was like, a 13-yard gain, but he ran like 81 yards on that play. So, I mean, that's the explosiveness and the ability of a guy who really should. I hope this was enough for the East Coast media to see that he deserves the Heisman, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be the Heisman Trophy winner in 2022. SEC, obviously you're gonna have a little bit of a big brother complex, little brother complex when it comes to the SEC, but these teams are losing left and right. And the SEC teams who people want to post up, right now in the college football playoff, you had LSU above USC. Okay, they go when they play at a horrible, when I say horrible Texas A&M team. I think they were 4-7 going into that game, 1-6 in conference, and they don't lose by a miracle, or somebody gets hurt like Tennessee last week with Hayden Hooker. They go there and get destroyed in every possible way. They get destroyed in that ball game. I mean, that's really just like you can't have that, and then be considered a team that's going to end up in the top 4 for the college football playoff. That loss, and that's their 3rd loss of the year. That eliminates LSU. Brian Kelly can do a dance before the season starts next year. Maybe that'll help, but they're not in this class of teams that should be fighting for the national championship in college football. I mean, they're just not there. Whether they win, whether they beat Georgia or not, it doesn't matter. They're not there. So let's not try to elevate them in that moment. As far as that goes, they got a lot of help this week. I think too. This weekend, you look at Ohio State, Michigan. As far as the college football playoff goes, Michigan goes to Ohio State and absolutely destroys Ohio State. So Ohio State, you have to question whether or not they need to be in the top 4. Maybe both those teams. Maybe both those teams should drop. And USC, USC might have a chance to. Can they get to 3? With a really good defensive performance, an all-around really good performance. I'm looking at some of the stats in this ball game here, and looking at Notre Dame. This vaunted Notre Dame run game had 90 yards in this game. 90 yards. 90 yards isn't going to get it done against anybody. I mean, this Notre Dame team was a team that Joel Klatt said from Fox Sports that we're going to run away and destroy the Trojans, right? They're going to win the game going away. They're going to beat them up on the offensive and defensive lines. That's the top of the mountain, right? That's Joe Klatt at the top of the mountain as far as college football goes, right? He's the top analyst right now, right? 3 podcasts, watches every game this year. I'm not sure how much. If you really dive into USC, like some of the stuff that the people are predicting that's going to happen, they had no chance of happening. None. And the way this team is played, again, the turnover. One was kind of a gift on an exchange, and then was Kalen Bullock. There's number 7 again. Number 7 comes up with another interception, kind of puts that game away, and USC wins that game. Kalen Bullock is a guy who I think too is they need to. I know they want him to kind of play. You don't hear his number called very much. And I think the reason why is because he's doing a good job on the back end. And unless you get all 22, you really can't see what all the things that he does. But I think they can do a little bit more with him. I think they can match him up with some of the, maybe a Dalton Kincaid who's going to be coming up soon, right? Possibly. You have, in this game here, put him on Mayer and see how he battles that one too. That would be something where I'd love to see him match up one-on-one with the other team's best target offensively. That'd be something cool to see as well. USC had 204 yards rushing. And this is the reason why in his version of the air raid, in Lincoln Riley's version of the air raid, I love it because it's about power football in the middle, in the trenches. This offensive line has been underrated all year. People don't talk about them that much, but they've done a great job. They've done a fantastic job. It's one of the best offensive units. They don't have a lot of depth, but I'm always worried about somebody getting hurt, in the middle, the center and the guard, stuff like that. I was always worried about them getting hurt in the season. That's the one area where USC really couldn't afford any injuries. Um, and then they really haven't had any. This offensive line has been very good. When they haven't been, as good, they were able to. They have number 13 who can just do all these different things. Caleb Williams is just. I mean, you can't. The words can't. Excuse me. Words can't describe his ability. His ability is unparalleled to just feel the rush. It is like, the announcers in the game today really talked about him being like a video game. It really was like a video game. Like it's almost like you're playing a joke with somebody. You're not even really playing them. You're just playing around. He's that good, but he has an amazingly strict regimen that he talked about during the week with the team from ESPN that he from a very young age got up at 5:30 in the morning and worked out before school and then worked out after school and worked out after practice. I mean, though that's the kind of dedication he has. Yes, the talent is there and all the stuff like that, but when you have a guy who is, I mean, it's LA, so I can bring that up, but that whole, Mamba mentality where you put in more work than your opponent, you get up early, you do all the stuff you need to do, over time, it's going to show up on the field. Over time, it's going to show up on the court. It's going to show up on the pitch if you play soccer or whatever. Show up on the baseball diamond. You put in the work, it's going to show up for you. And I think that's what you see that's what you see in this moment here with USC. Travis Dye goes down, and everybody's worried about Travis Dye and what's going to happen with Travis Dye. And I think in college football, unlike um, other sports, I feel like the next guy with the recruiting of some of these guys, players, and transfer portals and all that stuff like that, you see a situation where like the next man up is not maybe just as good, but can do some really special things. And I think Austin Jones is that guy who's doing a lot of special things for SC right now in that backfield. We were worried about the pass protection. It's good. It's been pretty good from him. His blocks have been pretty good. It hasn't been Travis Dye level, but as long as you give Caleb Williams the time to throw the football, you're good to go. And he is running so angrily, so downhill, becoming a guy who, I mean, there was a time where Notre Dame had 3 or 4 guys in the backfield. He spun and did, all these different things just to get, it was a 4-yard gain, but it could have been easily an 8-yard loss. And he avoided all those tacklers, a bunch of missed tackles to kind of keep the chains in the right direction. And he just runs really hard, putting his shoulder into people's chest. And Notre Dame is a pretty good defensive team with some pros on it. I mean, those guys there's some pro players who are going to be drafted from Notre Dame. So good job by Austin Jones. I mean, just a fantastic performance by him. I think he had, let's just do it through it real quick, what he had for rushing stats for Austin Jones. I mean, second game over 20 carries. He had 25 carries for 154 yards. Too bad he couldn't squeeze a touchdown out of it. But yeah, his long was 24 yards, so he was just banging it, and he was busting it outside, getting to the edge. He was also, just doing the dirty work in between the tackles, in between the guards and in between the tackles as well, just to kind of keep Notre Dame honest. I thought the last drive before, Notre Dame had just scored a touchdown. That drive before the half where they kind of milked the clock and just really kind of a slow, methodical drive. And he was big. He was a big part of that. He's a big part of that drive and give Caleb Williams, it gives all these guys just that balance they need. And that balance they need offensively. So we're not one. I mean, as good as they are, the USC could win a game if they were one-sided as far as running or passing. But if you could avoid it, why not? And they could avoid it. And the playbook is just more open. It's just open. You can do so many more different things when you do what USC does, and that's run the football at a high clip. I mean, 25. I mean, that's just great work right there. That's just great work by him. And the offensive line, who I talked about before. The offensive line has been pretty damn good, and I'm really impressed with the offensive line. They've been fantastic. I mean, was that 6.1, 6.2 yards a carry? I mean, that's just you can't beat that. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. Willie Brown got involved, got a touchdown. He's going to be a little bit of a menace next year too. I mean, when you look at me, when you look at Willie Brown, because you saw them kind of put him on the outside, put him on the edge, and he's such a great. He has great hands. He can catch the football. He did have a reception that could have went for a really long gain. Um, and didn't, but it was really close to doing so. And you can see his plays just coming, and they are so close to being broken for big plays. I would say also, Jordan Addison got involved, Mario Williams got involved, but man, Taj Washington, man, Taj Washington is just that little engine that who cut the 5'11" receiver, transfer out of Memphis. Just really just been done, just done a great job for SC this season. Whenever they need a big play, he's been there. I think the guys who make big plays in kind of critical situations for them in the passing game are Kyle Ford. Kyle Ford only had one catch today, but Kyle Ford has been a guy who repeatedly makes a big catch in a big moment. And then on that thing, and Taj Washington, who had the first touchdown of the game, he's just clutch. He's really clutch. Can make an athletic catch. Can high point a ball, as you saw later in that second half. Really, there's a lot of really cool things with them. As a willing blocker for his size at wide receiver, and can really get things going that way as well too. And you'll see USC will these receivers block for each other. It's really the thing about that's really crazy to me is that when you talk about Lincoln Riley, you thought maybe this was going to be like this mercenary team, but man, they are playing together, and they're playing together at the right time. Like so many times this YouTube channel is San Francisco Giants, Raiders, and USC football. And so many times in Raiders seasons, you see later in the year they just fade. I mean, there was a New York sportscaster who used to always call them the faders instead of calling them the Raiders, because he knew late in the season they would always fade away, right? And when you look at Lincoln Riley, he's talked about being in this position before at Oklahoma. Like he wasn't worried about the CFP rankings. You see them just start climbing and getting better and better and better. After the Utah loss, they just end up getting, they had some iffy games here and here. The Cal game comes to mind, but you can see them coming together every week. Every week. They're getting better and better and better every week. And now the defense is doing a pretty good job now. And the defense knows its role, and they get an enormous amount. And listen, you can't go in the game and just count turnovers, but at this point, you could probably get a pen just like this one and go out there and say, hey, you know what? They're gonna get two turnovers in this game. I mean, last game, there was a period of time where everybody was saying, "Oh, we'll see the real USC because they don't have the turnovers aren't here anymore." Now you're seeing like 4 last week against UCLA, had 2 today against Notre Dame, who Notre Dame is really stingy with taking care of as far as turnovers go. They don't usually give up any turnovers. They usually keep good care of the football. But USC did a great job with that. And forcing that turnover at 31-21 with like 5 minutes left. I believe that kind of ended the game right there. The Kalen Bullock undercut a pass by Pine, and that ended up being first and goal for our first INT, and then a drive for USC to kind of go in for that ice score with Kalen Williams, doing this thing, just a slow mesh, holding that football in the belly of the running back, and then just running up through the middle for a touchdown. So USC wins. beats Notre Dame, another ranked opponent. They've beaten a lot of ranked opponents here. I mean, people talked about going all the USC playing at Corvallis, right? Go ask the Ducks today about playing at Corvallis. How do you think that? How you think the Ducks feel about playing at Corvallis today? They came out losers today, gave up 27 unanswered points and lost that game there as well. So that's a really hard, that's a tough defeat for the Ducks, who if they won that game, they're going to Vegas to face USC. Now we got to see if it's going to be Washington or Utah. But as far as that go, Alex Grinch, a little bit of redemption, but I still think at times I would just like to see less zone and more. Okay, we have a team that really isn't explosive squad. So what I want to do is get a couple safeties deep, rush four consistently, and then just play man and just keep tight windows. Just let them force the opponent to throw in some tight windows. Because I mean, this team, besides Mayer, they really didn't have a guy who's going to win one-on-one consistently. They really didn't have that kind of player. So that for me, I'm not gonna let them, pick apart some zone defense and have one person out of position, and you end up, getting up a garbage touchdown later on in the game. Those plays like that could be, an issue later on. But right now, I think they got enough stops in this ball game. I think they had they had a fourth down stop as well. Let me see if they have. Let's see. Let's go roll right with the team stats. See how they did on third down defensively. I mean, they only gave up 3 yards, 3 yards, 3.5 yards per rush, which is really, good football as far as that goes. 6 penalties. Let's see, they got third down conversions. So it wasn't great. So third down conversions, they were Notre Dame was 5 for 7. So that's not good. So they gotta get more stops than that. But they did get a fourth down stop as well. USC did let's see here, they were 8 for 12 on there. So they had a high percentage as that as well. So Caleb Williams also showed that he can use his feet too as well. They were in that mid-range area, so he ended up kicking a couple of punts. One ended up being almost in that dead zone in between the 10-yard line and the goal line. I do think they have to be careful with that because there was one of those punts where you don't have your normal coverage team on the field. And I'm not sure if that safety or the Notre Dame safety or cornerback saw what was in front of him. But if he actually just caught it and ran, the only thing he had to do was beat the USC offensive lineman down the sideline, and he would have easily scored a touchdown. So so if you're gonna do that, make sure that thing goes out of the back of the end zone, not in an area where another defender, like especially a guy with a safety or a cornerback, can make a play and kind of change the game as far as that goes. But the special teams did a good job. Deep kicks, tackling. Didn't have to worry about anything kind of mind-boggling there as far as that goes, because they were playing in Notre Dame. They were playing one of the best special teams units in football, and I think that's the only thing I was worried about in this game. Did Notre Dame get a block punt? Did Notre Dame get a return for a touchdown, or or a fumble off of a return from USC? They didn't get any of those things. So if they said USC did a good job of staying clean in the special teams area. So it could just be their defense against Notre Dame's offense and vice versa. And that really kind of put a stranglehold on the team, because I think once they kind of drove down the field that first drive, got a stop, field goal, up 10. Notre Dame did some things to kind of they got some pressure on Caleb Williams, and if Caleb Williams wasn't Caleb Williams, he might have got sacked a little bit more. But at the end of the day, they're just not. I mean, they're not that level of team and they don't have a dynamic quarterback. They just don't. There's some dynamic quarterbacks coming up. I can tell you that. Washington has a dynamic quarterback. We know Cam Rising gave USC all that they could handle there as well. So you love that. I think it would be hard. I think as good as Utah is, it would be hard pressed for them to beat USC twice in 1 year, 1 calendar year. I think that would be difficult to do. But and one thing that's I would gotta say about USC too as well is they are healthy. I mean, they're healthy. Again, they got Eric Gentry back. Um they got Jordan Addison back from injury. They got Mario Williams back from injury. I mean, a lot of pieces are coming back together for this football team. So it's gonna be fun to watch them down the stretch here as Friday night in Vegas. Friday night in Vegas, you're going to see the USC Trojans go out here and kind of do their thing. It's kind of funny that they're going to be playing the Raiders Stadium. I guess some kind of championship game is going to be playing the Raiders Stadium. It won't be the Raiders playing in it. It'll be the USC Trojans as far as that goes. Student Body Right USC podcast. Dwayne Douglas here. I'm kind of our instant analysis. Kind of going over the game here. USC wins 38-27 over the Fighting Irish, who I do give credit for fighting in this game. I do give credit for kind of their season could have went hella wrong. It could have went hella crazy if they, you know, after losses to Marshall, after losses to another loss to Stanford, they lost to Stanford as well. Played a close game against some interesting opponents, but they did kind of turn their season around. So I do give a lot of credit for that as far as that goes. But that pass rush there, man. I mean, 26 carries, 3.26 carries, 90 yards. That's not nothing. That's not nothing. If you think you're gonna just kind of run the football against USC, it's probably not the best idea. I think still spreading them out and having a dynamic quarterback is still the way to beat USC. And if you don't have those things, I think also a tight end area. You see it again. I think the second week in a row where tight ends have been exploited this defense. I'm not sure. I mean, to me, I would probably just put. I mean, Eric Gentry just seems like he would be a perfect guy to put on. He just make him be a perfect guy in this situation to put on a tight end. Same thing with Kalen Bullock, but we'll see. I mean, they probably doesn't want to take him out of their natural spots in the defense, so we'll see what happens there. I'm just rolling down the stats real quick to see if there's anything else that's pressing there. I did think that on that fourth down play, they could have done. Notre Dame could have done something a little bit differently there to kind of outside the box instead of just trying to run the football right at USC. That's not just wasn't going to work. I would say that the ball needs to hit the ground a little bit more for the Trojans defensively. Drew Pine can't go 23 of 26. Like I know we had a couple of turnovers, a fumble, and then INT, but we can't. But I see a little bit more incompletions as far as that goes. Caleb Williams did this thing. McCree got involved. Talked about everybody. I think I talked about everybody else. So defensively, tackles wise, who led the league? Who led them tackles? Solomon Burr got some stuff going on. I think one thing I'll say about I think the last thing I'll leave on this one too is when you look at Shane Lee. Shane Lee is kind of a guy who was a thumper, not great in coverage, and people try to exploit him there. But the one thing I'll say with him being healthy and now being able to grasp tacklers, his hand is now healed enough where he can do that. You're playing into his strength. I mean, he's a guy who really is. You're playing into his. He wants to be. If you run on first down, second down, that's a Shane Lee kind of football game. I mean, he loves stuff like that. He had 4 tackles in this game, but he really is a guy who loves that kind of contact. And then you get Gentry coming over to help as well too. He had 9 tackles total, and then 7 solo tackles. So he's really good in space as well too. Brian, I think Bryson Shaw came into it and kind of solidified the defense as well. But but especially Shane Lee, like a thumper game is a game that he likes. So I would say that's the one thing with him being healthy is a good thing to have him back with the Trojans here as they kind of they keep marching. The Trojans keep marching, man. It's been a fun ride, fun season. Who would have thought? Who would have thought when Clay Helton got fired? Who would have thought they would end up here? That's why sports are great, and that's why the Trojans are going in the right directions under Lincoln Riley and the guy who should win the Heisman, number 13, Caleb Williams. So, Student Body Right USC podcast. We'll have another podcast during the week to kind of talk about, kind of put a end cap on the, put a lid on the Notre Dame game and kind of see what's gonna happen there, what's gonna happen out there, man. Before, it's gonna be cool to see what happens before the championship game in Vegas. It's been a long time long time coming before USC to be back on top or be back in the conversation of being on top, and now they have that opportunity here coming up this weekend, next weekend, and in Vegas. Short trip, and then they go to war at Allegiant Stadium. Should be fun. Should be fun times there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Trojan fans there as well too. So, all right, Student Body Right USC podcast. I'm gonna say fight on.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.